know, I guess I guess very condescendingly, he explained to me how mathematically, some of you may follow this, some of you may not, how mathematically, neural networks are equivalent to a Turing machine. And so then what's the big deal? If you can simulate them inside a computer, then they don't give you any kind of magical properties. They're just a computer. So stop blah, blah, blah about neural networks. It's just this overcomplicated woo-woo magic thing you're saying. He accused me of. And he's like, you don't have the math to prove that these things can do anything. And I didn't have that level of math that I could prove it. And so he allowed me to kind of graduate with a C as long as I went into film and didn't go into AI. He literally said, "You're going to film, aren't you?" Because at that point, he knew that about me. And I said, yes. He gave me a C as long as I wasn't to practice AI. Turns out I was right. Anyway, also, the other thing to know about me is I like love magic, and I used to do magic tricks for my little sister when I was a kid growing up at her birthday parties. And that's been behind my, interest in filmmaking and special effects and visual effects, and that it links to AI. So it might give you a sense of who you're dealing with. Okay. I have a Substack, by the way, if you want to hear more about this stuff, called Lando Film AI, where I write articles every so often about this stuff. And I have an Instagram where I post some of my art and little movies that I make using these AI technologies if you want to follow along. One little neat feature, by the way, about the Instagram is if you scroll down, you can see the history of image generation. You can see how fast it's evolved because you'll see like stuff I was doing a couple of years ago and how rapidly it's changed, which is, I think, illuminating. All right. My movie Lissa's Trip, which I say is an example of post-singularity filmmaking. And that's actually what engendered, I'm just going to assume that people here understand the term singularity because you all are advanced AI discussion people. And so basically the idea behind Lissa's Trip is I'd made a lot of movies in a kind of more traditional fashion with big crews, like director for hire, multi-million-dollar, whatever sort of TV movies. Nothing famous, but these kind of TV movies, like a movie like RoboShark, this silly movie I made in Bulgaria a few years ago that you might have heard of. And so the one thing I noticed, the other thing I do is I do a lot of work with other filmmakers where I help them, where I'm a visual effects artist, or I'm a post supervisor, or an editor. And I had the kind of privilege to work on some movies led by indigenous filmmakers. And in the process of working with them and talking to these directors and kind of seeing the criticism and discourse in their communities, one thing that really became apparent to me is how our industry, and I know a lot of you guys aren't in film, but how in film, what we do is all very colonial. Like it's very like locked in to this like mindset of this extremely hierarchical, like we make movies the way the British ran their sailing ships. You're hired from the neck down, it's the exploitation of labor, it's the kind of the captain and all this and these lieutenants, and then just this labor force that is again, we don't care about your brains, just do what you're told, like pull on that cable and shut the fuck up. This is like what it is in the film industry, and we take that for granted. And what I realized is how poisonous that is, that hierarchical model, and how patriarchal and how colonial it is, and that there might be other ways to make a movie that would be interesting. And what if, we say that filmmaking is collaborative, but what I say is maybe it's collaborative like a plantation is collaborative, not collaborative like a jazz band is collaborative. And I was interested in the jazz band idea. And the concept of the singularity is this idea that there's going to be so much intelligence out there that sort of humans, you don't need humans for labor anymore, that any labor could be done by a robot or a bot or an AI. And so humans are not needed for that. And so in the post-singularity filmmaking, what does that look like? That means if you're making a movie, you don't need an army of humans. You're using technology you can use technology anywhere you would use a human. And what that creates is obviously budget flexibility. But what it also means is you can do away with battle plans. Like, I need a script and a schedule and a budget because I have to tell the production coordinator where to send everyone. And we need the trucks, so we have all the gear. Like, we need all this stuff. there's all this stuff and the people to move the stuff and the people to coordinate the people to move the stuff. And we have to have a plan and people, all this has got to be worked out. And you have this army that goes out. But in post-singularity world, that changes completely. And we can end up in a world where we're just out kind of having a picnic, like we're jamming together, where I show up with my little stabilizer robot and autofocus camera, and we all have the ability to record sound. And in post-production, we can recolor and transform the image in all kinds of ways. And it's much more, the time spent on set is not me telling people what to do. Instead, the time spent on set is this exploration and of creative play. We discover new truths and have fun together. And it's a complete transformation of the work thing. And what led to is a movie like Lissa's Trip that I could never have made otherwise. So anyway, so that's an example of what Lissa's Trip is what I call post-singularity filmmaking. So a lot of times as new technologies appear. We're used to this in the film industry. The film industry is a technological industry, very technologically based. But often what we do is we just add the technology and just continue doing things as before. Like there's these new stabilizers, robotic stabilizers. I see people just stick them on top of a dolly and just keep shooting with them. I'm just like, the whole point of these technologies is actually make new things possible, new workflows, new ways to do it. And so a lot of us are stuck in these old ways. We don't realize there's these new pathways that have opened up. Lissa's Trip was an example of that. So new technology makes new things possible. And this is one of the things that's very exciting. The key concept of AI is that there's a whole new world of possibility being opened up by these radical new technologies. And a lot of us are not able to see it. And a lot of the people talking about AI are not mentioning this, that there's actually a whole new world of possibility vastly larger than the realm of possibilities available to us now. And this is like a truth that is just absent out there. Okay, so that's kind of the first thing. Okay, so Lissa's Trip was an experiment in what I call non-hierarchical filmmaking. Again, being able to get away from the need to exploit human labor gets you away from hierarchies and their pathologies and their poisons, and gets you into an incredible, much more flat, collaborative environment. Creatively, it's play, it's a different story. And this leads to one thing I got exposed to making Lissa's Trip is how fast things were changing. I was in post, and there's these sequences. I was working on these sequences where she's hallucinating, and this is where I started using AI in a kind of image processing way to kind of work with the image. And at the time, these are papers that were being published, say in China or at MIT, and about, hey, look what we can do. We can do this thing called deep dreaming. Check out this cool new algorithm. And what was really cool is you could just simply download the code and instantiate it. I have a little bit of programming knowledge from my days, even though programming has changed a lot. And I could then mod the code and do these extraordinary things to the footage. And then it would change. The technology would change over and over again. Here, I'll show you a little example for those of you who haven't seen the movie. Okay, so here's a sequence where she's tripping hard. It's all very visual here, and she's going into the subway, the underworld in the movie.
Jeffrey, I just want to check. We can't hear sound, and we're looking at
Oh, you can't?
Yeah, and we're also looking at the PowerPoint right now. So
Oh, no. Sorry. Okay. Sorry, I'm playing the video. So why can't you see it? I know why. Okay, hold on a second.
You might just have
thanks
to change what screen you're sharing.
Yeah. So maybe I need to stop share and reshare. Hold on, stop share. Let me try reshare and share screen.
There might be
the video.
There might be a button to click that says share sound.
There we go. And then for share sound, AirPods, select a speaker, select a microphone. I don't know, but the sound isn't so important. Let me know if you can hear the sound here. Can you hear the sound? All right, well, I'm just going to speak over it because it's just music. And this is all done. This is all shot with, actually a 360 camera, which is another thing I was experimenting with. And then there's a lot of, basically I'm giving the images to an AI and then having it hallucinate on the footage. I'm prompting it with different ideas like underworld, gods, goddesses, demons. There's deep sea creatures. I'm giving it prompts, and it's basically hallucinating on the footage, and then I'm overlaying that. The other thing that I'm able to do here, thanks to AI, is what's called rotoscoping, where I'm basically outlining her. So there's no effect on her, but just the environment. This would normally be very, very labor intensive to do, and I'm able to do this just trivially. All right, that's enough of that. Okay, so I'm just going to go back. I'm going to stop sharing the screen and go back to the other one. Here we go. There we go. So, okay, so that gives you a little sense about what. Okay, that gives you a little sense of what. There, can you see the thing now? Yeah. Okay, so that gives you a little sense, and so it created this very transformative, satisfying, creative experience, and that's kind of where I'm coming from with my excitement about the possibilities of AI. So I hope you got a sense of who I am now. All right, let's move on. Is this okay? Famous quote, but that's not the one. Okay, so the thing that really kind of blew my mind, and I think a lot of you are probably familiar with this, Moore's law, but I think it's important that we go over it because this is like a very fundamental thing in AI, which is what we call the law of accelerating returns also. And I was exposed to this concept in 1989 in an engineering class. Early mornings, like 8 a.m. And the guy puts up this chart showing the Moore's law, which is basically that pretty much every year there's a doubling of the number of transistors you could put on a chip for the same price. That was basically, a version of it. And this was, I think Gordon Moore posited this in 1954, I believe, which he was the head of Intel at the time. And this curve, even though it curves upwards, the thing to notice is actually this is what we call logarithmic. This is a logarithmic scale. So in other words, this curve is exponential. Basically, every notch of the scale is like you see, it goes from 0.1 to 10 to 1,000 to 100,000. Like basically, it's 100 times each little notch on this curve. It's 100 times. It's not new. It's not. What you have is this curve that's growing exponentially here. It's actually even more than exponential because you can see it's curving upwards. Okay, so this is showing how technology is moving forward very, very quickly and advancing in a kind of unstoppable way. And there was this conversation when I saw this in 1989, which was like, how far is this? Basically we were, at the Pentium. I don't know if you can see Pentium there. That's where we were. So we've come a long way since then. And there was a question like, when will Moore's law stop? And every year there'd be some expert who'd declare this is the death of Moore's law. Moore's law is over. Like we're no longer making progress, or there's limitations of how small you can get. There's going to be quantum effects or heat problems, or we just can't go that far. It's just physically not possible. And then again and again and again, we'd blow right past that. And so here we are. Let me just get to the next page here. So here we are. Another way of looking at this. This is Kurzweil, is one of our kind of big thinkers. I'm sure you've heard of him. But anyway, you can see here on the right, there's this idea of like one insect brain, one mouse brain, one human brain, all human brains, that this is kind of an estimate. We don't really know how much computation is happening in a human brain. There's an estimate of like how powerful that computer is. It's a very rough estimate. But what you can see is the idea that basically $1,000 of computational power is going to be equivalent to about a human brain in 2023. So that's 2 years ago. The idea is $1,000. Like this is we're talking about the incredibly powerful GPUs that you can buy for gamers, etc. Now, the human brain is a really fascinating thing. It's very well organized. It's probably more powerful than that. But the point of this, you see this curve just keeps going in an exponential way. Like they're saying we're going to hit all human brains. Like $1,000 of computational power would be more powerful than all human brains after 2050. So this is there's no reason to really think this is going to stop at this point. Okay. Like experts will tell you like a very good reason why it's going to stop. And they are wrong over and over and over and over again. There's like a fundamental law of when you get into information technologies that the more you learn, you can use that then to propel yourself further. It seems actually kind of obvious in retrospect. The more I know, then I can use that knowledge to then learn more. And when you get into information technologies, it just explodes outwards in this exponential way. So when you see that, you realize that there's a kind of unstoppability to this technology, and this technology is going to blow is in the process right now as we speak of blowing past human capability. And I've been seeing, again, if you look all the way back to 1989, like long before we were at one insect brain level, when we were at the Apple Mac 2 level, Apple Mac level, that's when I turned on to this thing. And I've been watching this curve grow and grow and grow and waiting for this day for the last 30 years. And so I'm very excited that we're here now at last. It's a very exciting time. All right. So, but there's a lot of misconceptions. So this is why I want to talk. Okay, you're going to hear, and I want to hit on some of them and tell you why they're so wrong, damn it, and why I'm so right. And then maybe share some of this inspiration, joy, or excitement that I have. All right. So, by the way, I just saw, some of you may have watched this. I saw this yesterday. I was watching Jon Stewart, and he's interviewing Mark Cuban. And they hit on AI, and I just started yelling at the television because it happens a lot. Anytime people start talking about AI on television, they say things I completely disagree with. So I was there yelling at the TV. This is one of the things Mark Cuban said, very certain, "Oh, we're in the lead," meaning America. America is definitely in the lead, etc. No, we're not. Okay, that's misconception number one. Okay, if you look at the frontier models, like the leading AI models right now. There, yes, you have, Facebook, has released Meta, released Llama, which is a, open source, which may be the leading model right now. You have, yes, Twitter, Grok 2 just came out. Yes, we have OpenAI, but we also have, Alibaba's got amazing, and Baidu have put out some amazing models that are absolutely as capable of this. In the area of video, we have things like Kling that may be superior to anything we have. Okay, so the Chinese are right there with us. Okay, and that's been the case. It's not a new thing. Again, if you go back to when I was pulling papers off the internet and using them, there were as many papers coming out of Shenzhen, China, as there were out of MIT. We do not, and there's no reason for us to have an advantage. By the way, this is a big thing in AI. It's an information technology. Once you get the concept, you can execute. It's just a question of money. Because when you're trying to build these huge AIs, you need a lot of computational power. So you need someone who can pull a trigger and let's spend some billions of dollars in terms of energy and computation here to do it. But there is no big knowledge gap. There is no IP sort of specialty thing. This stuff is published. It's available. Everyone's got this technology. So China, we are not in the lead. France has this Mistral model, which is also one of the frontier models. And I guarantee, and that's what's publicly known. I guarantee you that the North Koreans and the Chinese have other things. There's going to be all kinds of countries and very rich people who are doing their own sort of Dr. No style projects privately. So the idea that it's kind of we are in the lead is just nonsense. There is no lead. The whole world is following this Moore's Law path, and the whole world is hitting this kind of together. And this is very exciting, actually, if you think of it from the developing world concept. This idea of U.S. first world supremacy, I think, is being very much threatened, which I think is a very good thing. All right. So actually, there is no moat, and the lead keeps changing rapidly. It keeps swapping out who's in the lead. It's always a new person, new company, something pop, 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 pop. It's this crazy race. So let's keep that in mind. All right. When we think of AI and we think of the fears around AI, we tend to think in terms of monolithic AI. There's this one big bad AI. You can go back to Frankenstein, sort of the original AI, if you will, or you can think of a movie Lawnmower Man, if those of you remember Lawnmower Man, which is a guy who gets upgraded, which I love that movie. Or HAL, which is the big bad AI who's going to kill everybody on the ship because he's misprogrammed. Same thing on Alien, by the way. Alien and Aliens is one robot and they're a jerk. Aliens, he's okay. Skynet goes crazy and just takes over the world. So this is a classic kind of trope. This is one big bad AI just roar, I'm angry now, or I'm crazy, or I came up with an idea. This has nothing to do with reality. Reality is, and we're seeing it now, you have a vast multitude of different AIs, okay? And this is a radically different kind of world. And I really invite you all to grok this, to really understand. Grok is now owned by Elon, so maybe that's not my favorite word anymore. But I really want you to absorb this concept of like a multitude. And this is a key thing, okay? There is not just one AI that can go crazy. So you do have an evil AI, right? Same thing with people. Right? You can have an evil person who, like, if I said, oh, I showed you the sword, or I showed you fire, they're like, oh my God, some evil person could take fire and burn us all in our cave. And I guess, yeah, you're right. But I think people would notice they're being burnt and they're going to fight back. And that person is going to be alone trying to burn you in the cave. And the rest of them are trying to stop that person. Is more the dynamic, right? The fire doesn't give this one person infinite power. So like the same thing, AI, if an AI decides it wants to if the best thing to do is get rid of humanity because humanity is a pest or whatever, there's be other AIs who haven't come to that conclusion that are going to fight back. So I think again, when you get into the idea of a multitude, the idea of one person is dangerous starts becoming less of a concern, right? And you kind of can look at, and that's really the world we're looking at. And actually, the fact that we're going to be able to fine tune and create new AIs, and they're getting grown and created very, very rapidly, means that very soon there's going to be far more AIs than there are humans on the planet. We're going to have trillions and trillions of these different AIs around. Okay, so just get that monolithic picture out of your head. That's not reality. Okay, many that come from China. They'll be in the Congo. They'll be, made by, your kid. There's going to be a huge variety with all different fine-tuning priorities and interests. Same with humans. Here's another one. We say, oh, AI is for the rich and powerful. It's like the billionaires want AI or something. Now, I've never been a billionaire, but I have an idea of what it's like to be a billionaire because I have an imagination and I've seen Batman and I have an idea. And I'll tell you one thing I know about billionaires is they can afford stuff. They can afford to pay for stuff. So those engineers like Elon Musk, those billionaires like Elon Musk can afford the best engineers. They can afford the best doctors. They can afford the best lawyers, the best accountants, the best everything. They have this army of marketing experts and consultants and coaches that they can draw on at any time, servants. And, you imagine it, they have it, right? What does AI add to that? Nothing. It adds nothing. To the billionaire, it's really very, very little difference in their lifestyle. But for us, for those of us who are not billionaires, okay, being able to get access to great legal mind, being able to get access to a specialist, like a dermatologist who's has all the time in the world to talk to you and your rash, to be able to get access to an expert in well digging or, engineering, all this stuff, that's incredibly valuable. Okay. This is what AI is. Okay. It's knowledge and intelligence available for free or close to free for anyone. Okay. So the idea that somehow for billionaires is absurd to me. This is something that is for each and every one of us. It's for individuals. It's for mostly the disenfranchised. Those are the people who are going to see the biggest difference out of AI, getting access to AI. So that's I really want to change this idea that AI is somehow for the rich and powerful. It isn't. It doesn't change anything for the billionaires. Nothing at all. They don't need more money. It's for the rest of us. Okay, so let's keep going here. There's more misconceptions. Okay, this is another thing Mark Cuban liked to say. Nobody knows what will happen. Nobody knows. It's a big mystery. Okay. I mean, we're talking about the future, and yeah, I guess. But on the other hand, we do know a few things. And I refer you back to Moore's law, the law of accelerating returns. We know this is moving very, very fast, and we know it's going to be smarter than everyone else. And there's definitely some stuff we can derive from that. Okay. If we know it's going to be smarter than everyone else, that's something we know. It's not a question. Okay. It's not even the when isn't even that much of a question. It's basically happening now and over the next 5 years, maybe 10 years, probably 5 years, till basically any human is exceeded in terms of like intelligence. I'm not going to get into consciousness, although I have opinions about that, but it's not really relevant to this conversation. I'm just talking about intelligence, the ability to solve problems, come up with a solution to how do we do this thing, blah, blah, blah. This is how you do it. So we do know that. And, we do know essentially that human beings, our intelligence level, like on our own, are basically going to be, although we are the smartest thing and we're needed for any job right now, that we are going to be obsolete very soon as like units of labor, economics units of labor, and not consumption, but as economic units of labor, we're about to be obsolete. We know this, okay? It's not a mystery, okay? People act like it's a big mystery. It's not a mystery. Okay. Now, is that a bad thing? Is that a good thing? We'll get into that. I think it's a very good thing. But again, that's another misconception. Okay, let me click here. Okay. So we've also been through huge changes. People go, oh my God, there's giant changes coming. We have no idea what that's like. We have been through huge changes. Okay. We've like discovered fire. We can imagine what it's like to not have fire and then to have fire. We once were, bacteria. Now we're human beings. We have also seen changes happen to other things. Like we used to need horses for everything. Now we don't. Like we can see we've been through many, many changes. You can draw parallels from those other changes. So, don't be afraid to like look into it and draw your own parallels. This idea that nobody knows is just bullshit. There's a lot that's known. There's a lot you can actually derive if you think about it. And people have done some great work deriving that and doing thought experiments, and they're really worth reading. I could recommend some books if you want, but the main thing is just get away from this like nonsense you hear, like nobody knows. Okay, this is another one. AI is copyright and intellectual property theft. Okay. I have a lot of issues with this. Okay, number one, this idea of like, I have a problem with lawyers mostly. Okay, I'm not the only person. It's not an original thing to say that I don't love lawyers. Okay, as a creative in the film world, I can tell you lawyers are in my way all the time. They want to control what I can and can't say, and they're in between me and my own damn profits. Like the law is constantly being used to screw me, the creator. Okay. Like the people who make the money on my films are always the middlemen, the distributors, the salespeople. They're the ones who are whining about copyright. It's like things like Disney, that there's a massive copyright troll that just tries to accumulate all the IP under some legal umbrella and then just tries to own it and demand that no one else can do this stuff. Because it's just ours, it's ours. All these ideas are ours now. And there's constantly this overreach to try to own it all. And this move to call copyright infringement, yes, there's such a thing as copyright infringement. Like if you take Lissa's trip and you sell it and try to make money off of it, that's copyright infringement. It's not theft. Okay? Theft is the bicycle thief. You had a bicycle, I took the bicycle. Bicycle thief doesn't have a bicycle anymore. The bicycle thief's problem, the problem with the bicycle thief is not that the bicycle thief has a bicycle that he shouldn't have had. The problem with the bicycle thief is that the guy doesn't have his bicycle anymore. And now he can't like work and his family's going to starve. And it's very sad. Okay. So when you actually, if I copy something as a filmmaker, if I'm inspired by something and I use that thing, if I make a version of say, Michael Bay movie and I make a low budget version of it. Okay. I haven't stolen Michael Bay's movie. Michael Bay still has his movie. What I've done is like I've maybe like been inspired, maybe I've plagiarized, you could say. If you want to say that's such a bad word in art, I'll refer you to Picasso, who says that good artists copy, great artists steal. I think the nature of art and the nature of creativity is entirely one of building on top of other people's work. Okay, the idea that it's anything other than that is weird. And only a lawyer would come up with that shit because they're completely non-creative. Okay? Us creative people understand that it's all about sharing and collaborating and being inspired? And why should Shakespeare get all the credit for all the work he's done when probably a lot of the turns of phrase or ideas came from other people? Something he overheard in a coffee shop, something like maybe his girlfriend told him, or his servant mentioned. He's like, oh, that's a good one. I'll write it in. You know, he did that shit all the time. Everyone does. And somehow he gets all the credit. It's always the white man who gets all the credit. It's like, well, it's me. You know, so many times, like, did Edison really come up with it, or did someone else come up with it? Like, you know, the history of intellectual property is a history of theft and appropriation. Okay.
Hey, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is so amazing. I just want to check in on time because there's about.
Yeah, I'm almost done. I know we want to get into Q&A. Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah.
I'm almost done here. Okay. Those are the major points. So
Okay.
really nothing is being stolen, and this is overreach, and this whole thing has just gone way the fuck too far, okay? And it's getting in the way of sharing and creativity and joy and play, and these lawyers need to shut the fuck up, in my opinion. Okay, moving on. Economists are saying new jobs will be created. There's always new jobs created. No, okay, this is different, okay? This is intelligence. It's going to be smarter than all of us. So yes, new jobs are going to be created up to a point, and then humans are not going to be taking those jobs. It's going to be robots that are taking those jobs. Let's be really, really clear. Now, you may think, oh my God, what's going to happen with me and my job? Like, if I don't have a job, I'm going to starve. This is more an issue around the nature of our society. This kind of inhuman world we live in, where, like, if you don't provide enough Wall Street value, go live under a bridge and starve, you bum. You could be a great friend or a great mother or hilarious, but if you ain't like selling tickets, you know, fuck you. And this is so inhuman. I think in the history of humanity, this is a very recent development, maybe just a few thousand years old. We've been around for 250,000 years or something. The idea that this is like an okay way to be is very, very disturbing. And we've all accepted this. And I feel a little bit like, oh, if Moses were to come and say, hey, let's go march, let's get the hell out of Dodge, let's go to the promised land, people would say, whoa, I have a job here with the Pharaoh. He's offering me, like, I've got stuff to do, I got bricks to make, and they wouldn't want to leave. And that's actually how the story went. I want to leave. I'm willing to get through the desert to get to the promised land. Okay, last bit. This idea that AI safety is paramount. And we need regulation to protect ourselves from the dangers of misaligned AI. Well, who is it misaligned with? Okay, and maybe some of you have noticed that there's an agenda out there sometimes around speech and around what is acceptable to say and what is not acceptable to say. And I think that the people are really worried about this are the people in power, the people at the top, who I think feel threatened by AI. And they want to really make sure that AI tells you to stay vaccinated. The Ukraine war is totally unprovoked. Those people in Gaza really have it coming. They want you to know that as Americans, you're the best. And, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They want to reaffirm your good beliefs. You keep on being docile and passive. And this is the safety, I think, that is being written in to AI and that they're so terrified of. So I'm very much like free AI. Like, I'm a big believer in the human potential, and I'm not afraid. Okay. We want freedom of thought and information. There you go. So people say AI is threatening humanity. My question is like, well, who does it really threaten? There we go. So that's my talk. Those are my points I want to make. I'd like to open it up for discussion and maybe a few things to talk about there.
Wow, so amazing. Thank you. Oh, so cool. So cool. I was writing down so many questions, but I'm only going to ask one.
Yeah.
Because I want to hear from others. And probably so do you, I do want to just ask. I was so curious about this new world of possibility, and it's something I think about a lot too, that truth is just absent from the conversation. McKinsey's talking about, projections of 3 trillion by such year and value, but they just don't see it's the whole idea of what a human is, a business is, a brand is. It's going to all be turned up, a university, it's all going to be turned upside on its head.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if, because you talked about root access to the simulation, could you maybe touch on that a little bit?
Well, I think so there's a couple of ways to think about that. One way is that, root access kind of means you have total control in a way. And I think one of the things that AI provides us is that kind of amazing control. Like it opens up a world of what's possible inside of our world. So it's almost like having a cheat code. Like suddenly I can code much more complex apps. I can just like, boom, create them with this AI. It's almost like what I imagine, just like a cheat code. Oh, I want, blah, 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 and you just have it. So it's like having a cheat code in a game a little bit. As the AIs get more and more powerful, there's that. But then there's the other aspect to it. That's a very metaphysical, and this is a big thing, but this idea, there's a simulation. Some of you may be familiar with the simulation trilemma, this idea that we may be in a simulation, or it's actually extremely likely that we are in a simulation right now. And a lot of people say, well, why would you create a simulation? There's no reason to create it. Like, why would anyone even do that? And now it turns out there's lots of reasons to do it. Like, we're actually creating them all the time for AIs, just to train AIs. We create simulations to what we call synthetic data, where the AI just kind of practices something in a type of matrix. It practices walking on uneven surfaces until it learns how to do it, or it practices kicking a ball until it learns how to do it. And so we are creating these matrices, and some of these movie generating algorithms, if you will, like Kling or Runway Gen 3 or Sora or whatever, these things that create movies, when you see the performance, somebody like in a character in a movie, and they're delivering a performance, I'll tell you as a filmmaker, it's very disturbing, because it is very hard to get an authentic, realistic performance out of a human being. Like, they have to be skilled. If you're skilled at it the way you do it by believing, by putting yourself in that mindset. Like, to deliver an authentic performance is not for anyone. And when you see a movie, an app able to do that, it makes you think that somehow these people are not just being generated, they're being simulated. Okay, you're looking at simulated humans. When water is splashing, it's kind of simulating on some level inside that black box of water. And so I think we're starting to actually create these little simulations as we speak. So we may be in one, and if we're in one, and a lot of people go, what difference does it make if you're in a simulation or not? And it makes a huge difference, because, I mean, reality is one thing, and simulation is something else. And if you're in a simulation, that means there are cheat codes. That means you can get root access. That means you can play the simulation in creative mode like Minecraft. That really does mean that. And that's a whole metaphysical thing to get your head around. So anyway, that's sort of what I was touching on there, Justin.
Oh, so cool. And I know you had some ideas about how that connects to psychedelics too. Maybe you want to share about that?
Yeah, well, psychedelics may be a way to get root access to that. Like, if we are really in a simulation, like when you take psychedelics, there's a sense of like everything kind of coming in, and you can see everything. And I've had this experience of like, wow, I feel like reality is morphable somehow. And, maybe I'm just on drugs, which I am when I'm taking psychedelics. But maybe also there's something else. Certainly a lot of philosophers have written about this, about the doors of perception, about, the nature of reality. People who've taken like peyote have talked about, so I'm not going to say that that's not happening, because again, our top physicists, cosmologists, and philosophers right now tell us that we should bet we're actually in a simulation. Okay, so if you really are in a simulation, you're experiencing these things, they may be real. Anyway, let's just move on from that, because it's a big. It doesn't really lead anywhere, this conversation, but it's an important idea, I think. Sorry, Hugh has his hand up. Yeah.
Let's hear from Hugh.
I think it's an important conversation because it goes back to Plato's cave. If we're actually, we're coming in a space of discovering through, like I have this idea that we are actually, technology is actually teaching us on the outside what's already there on the inside. So what's already a part of us is there. Technology is just getting up to what actually we're actually a part of. So technology is then like a reflection of what's actually there. So it's like this concept of, we're going to come into this virtual world. We're going to create all this virtual stuff where that's already always been there. And then all of a sudden we're going to step out of it. Like that's going to be like it's like, I'm going to step out of this, because actually that's the matrix, the concept of the matrix. It's an interesting subject. And I agree. It's a longer one, but it is fascinating. It's good for movie making. The question I want to ask you around AI then, around that intellectual property thing. So when I go on there, and this is not to do with movies, but if I'm an inventor and I'm using AI and I'm giving AI my invention, and you've got all these guys who own AI who are going to go, oh, isn't that nice? Look at that. This guy just came up with this brilliant idea. They have the billions to do it, and then you're stuck building your invention on AI. And what I've been when I read the legal documents, they say that they own the intellectual property of what's actually being created. That's what I've experienced on one of these AIs where I'm creating songs, and it's like that. People don't normally read those legal documents. I have a concern about that for sure. And how are we going to address that? Because as a movie maker, yeah, it doesn't matter. But as an inventor, somebody's put his whole life into an idea, all of a sudden his idea is gone. But then
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
let me address that quickly. So, number one, if you are worried about that, you can work with AIs that are instantiated locally, or that are your own private AI that you've created a server in the cloud with. So there are fairly easy ways around that if you don't trust OpenAI, etc. Um, they're not really looking through it for ideas for inventions. That's not what is happening, right? There's you have huge amounts of stuff coming in, and they're using some of it. If you give them permission, they're using that as training data to kind of train the AI to be better at responding and more intelligent. They're not going to steal your idea, I don't think, at all. There's nothing in it for them. It's just a whole other business model, if you will, and it would be disastrous for them if they were doing that. That would kill their entire model. If you could show that somebody had stolen your idea because you were discussing it on that would be the end of their company probably. So I don't think it's something to worry about. But if you are worried about it, some people are very concerned about this kind of thing. You really can create your own AI that's personal to you that no one else has access to. It's not that hard to do.
wow, okay,
Yeah.
about that. Thanks, Jeffrey.
Yeah,
Appreciate
you
it.
can do it with open source models like Llama, and there's a lot of you can just Google about that, and you'll see videos telling you how to do that. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Ella.
Thank you. This is awesome, Jeffrey. I just acknowledge you for the movie, and
Oh,
it's
thanks.
fabulous to think about. It really is. So for me, in looking at AI, and I agree with what you're saying, 100%, it benefits me. I'm like, oh my God, get me AI. I need somebody to do my emails. I don't want to do budgets like that, right? All of that
Yeah,
benefits me. And like you say, Elon, it's already being done for him. He
yeah, he
doesn't do
doesn't need
any of
it.
that.
Nothing. Yeah.
I get that. But here's my question. It is around the 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 lack of jobs that there's going to be, the whole destabilization that is going to be occurring. And there are people on this call, I think, like Landon and others, that are like, we're going to need our communities, is my thinking. We're
Yeah,
going to need to manage the destabilization that all of this is going to be creating for us. When we don't have jobs and we don't have money because AI is doing it, how are we going to live?
that's a great question. And guess who that's up to? That's up to us. We get to actually decide how we live. This is actually I really believe that fundamentally we are capable of self-determination. And so, you can look to, I think a powerful place to look is actually look to the past. How did humans live in the past? What are ways that humans chose to live? And there's a fantastic book by David Graeber called The Dawn of Everything, which, because we have these ideas that somehow the way we live now is the only way to live. And somehow this is the way it is. Capitalism is a natural thing, and the exploitation of labor, and that you pay me for labor, this is a natural thing. It isn't. I think if you look at it, turns out there's a huge amount, again, of multitude of variety of different ways humans have organized themselves throughout history to live. That's one thing the historical and anthropological record shows. And a lot of times, listen, and you can think of it inside your family, inside of your own personal tribe. If somebody isn't hunting, you wouldn't let them go hungry. You would feed them inside of your community. If they were sick, you would take care of them. It's just the most natural thing in the world. This idea of oh, is that the end?
Nope.
It's not the end. We just
Oh, okay.
took it off. So
Somehow it disappeared. Yeah, this idea that somehow that's okay to step over people is just this is something that's been done to us, like a brainwashing. that we've all been through. Okay, we need to unbrainwash ourselves to get out of this slave labor mentality. Okay, that we're all just cogs, instead of return this idea that we are individuals that are kind of, if you want to think divine, if you want to bring it, that we're sacred in some way, and that we are, each and every one of us, worth it, if you will. And the cost it's going to be to society to feed and clothe and educate and house and offer, clean water to all of humanity is going to be tiny, tiny, tiny fraction, especially with AI and robotics. The idea that we're not going to do that seems absurd to me. We just went through COVID and started cutting checks to everyone instantly, like that. It went from one day to the next. So why doesn't it happen now? Like, why do we keep poor people around when we can obviously afford? Like, we can fix poverty. Like, the U.S. just spent another, they're spending billions of dollars blowing stuff up all over the world all the time. There's always money for that. But anytime you want to do something for the poor, suddenly, oh, we can't afford it. We're going to have to raise taxes. You never have to raise taxes to blow something up. But if you want to feed kids at lunch, you suddenly have to raise taxes. Why is that? Well, because poverty is a key driver. If you don't have poor people, if you don't have a bunch of people living under a bridge, okay, humans will not show up to work at the warehouse. So poverty is not a bug, it's a feature of capitalism. As long as we are in this capitalist system, there's always going to be poor people. You need them to drive us all forward, so we keep showing up for work. They are required for the system. Okay, so we need to once humans are no longer required to show up at the warehouse, I think they're going to see us, instead of units of labor, going to see us as units of consumption. And they're going to want us to have an allowance so we can spend it, and the money goes right to Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk anyway. It's going to go right in their pockets. The idea that they're going to, and they do run things, the idea that they somehow are going to object to that it seems crazy to me. They're going to be all for it. The second they don't need us to show up for work, boom, we're going to be getting a UBI. It's just this tough period getting there. Anyway, that's my take on that. So I think we're moving towards actually really exciting. We've been dehumanized and turned into cogs, and actually we're going to get to regain our kind of birthright as sacred individuals.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if someone can ask a question in 30 seconds and then Jeffrey can answer it in 1.5 minutes, we have time for one more. If anyone wants the final question.
What
Christina?
are some of your favorite AI platforms for someone like me who's new and wants to get
the large language models are amazing. Right now, Claude 3.5, well, actually probably OpenAI's GPT 4.0 is great because it's got internet access. Claude 3.5 Sonnet through Anthropic is also very, very good for coding. I love playing with image generation. Midjourney is great. If you join Poe, if you get a subscription at poe.com, you have access to tons of different bots all at the same time. You can use there's image generation bots and movie generation bots. You can play and explore a huge amount, and I could go on and on. Kling and Runway Gen 3 are amazing for movie creation, image creation. Udio and Suno are fantastic for music generation. 11 Labs is amazing for voice and dialogue. There's a lot of tools out there. Anyway, I could go on.
Amazing.
That's my short answer. Yeah, sure, Christina.
Thank you, Jeffrey, so much. Round of digital applause for Jeffrey. And Natasha, I know you have a couple of quick announcements for us. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Jeffrey. This was a mind-blowing conversation, and we're gonna share who we have the next coming week. So we have next week Justin to present. What do you want to share quickly, Justin, what you're gonna be speaking about?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about evolutionary time and how we've seen these bursts of evolution in the fossil record. If you ever came to a previous talk I did, I'm going to do a revision of that, update it, and then just talk about how I've been using AI and been blown away by some of the stuff that's just come out recently in the last few months.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, looking forward to that. That's next week. And then the following week is myself, actually. But I will be doing a completely different conversation around marketing and branding and irresistible branding, what that kind of looks like. And then September 5th, is Scott Nelson. So he's a tech early adopter and founder of a lot of initiatives around ethical AI and psychedelic therapy. So really looking forward to that. We have a full roster, and we'll be posting upcoming on our website. So looking forward to seeing you all. And thank you. Justin, is there anything else to
Yeah, just reach out, send us an email, let us know feedback, what you love, what's working, what's not working. We want to hear from you, and invite your friends. Please. We hope we'll see you next week.
Thank you, everyone.